Hi, everyone. We're going to continue with JavaScript, and we're going to look specifically now at the canvas. So if we go to W3 Schools and then go to Learn HTML and then scroll down to HTML graphics, there is a special tag called the HTML canvas, and it's a canvas element used to draw graphics on a web page. So it says here, the HTML canvas element is used to draw graphics on the fly via JavaScript. The canvas element is only a container for graphics, and you must use JavaScript to actually draw the graphics. Canvas has several methods for drawing paths, boxes, circles, text, and adding images. So the canvas element and tag is a special HTML tag that requires us to use JavaScript. And it has a particular way that it works. So we're going to look at some of the ways that the canvas is a little bit different than other HTML elements because it requires a script tag. So if we scroll down here, we see all these examples of drawing a circle, drawing a text, stroke, gradients, all these different things, drawing an image. And then down here, there's the Canvas tutorial. And it gives us all of these different kinds of things that we can do. We can make it animated, interactive, it can be used in games. And on the side here in the tutorial, there is a Canvas reference. So it shows us all of the functions that are already a part of the Canvas element and the things that we can do with it. So we're going to start off and do some rectangles and lines and circles. So if you go into your Glitch account, and I have just a simple HTML page set up using their template, and I'm going to erase the script tag that they have here. And I have a body and nothing in it yet. So all I want in my body is a canvas tag. And I'm going to give my canvas an ID. And I'm just going to call it my canvas. And then underneath this, I need to add in a script tag and create a source, which will be called canvas.js. And I need to create that. So I've already created that. So you need to go to new file and then write canvas.js and then add the file. Mine's already here. Okay, so I have my canvas here and it shows up automatically with the dimensions. I think it's a 200 by 300. So in my style, I've also already added a canvas tag. So let me take that out. If I don't have that there, the canvas has no stroke on it and you can't see it on a web page with nothing on it yet because there's nothing there. So I, in my CSS file, just gave it a border so that we can see it. And of 1 pixel, pixel, solid and black. So that you can see, here is the canvas element on the HTML page. So I'm going to go back to my JavaScript file. And I need to always have a setup for the canvas. So in JavaScript, to write a comment, write 2 forward slashes and type it. And this is a comment, so it's for you to read. And here, I'll just put that in here. Double slash, double forward slash for comment. And the first thing I need to do is create a variable for the canvas and get the canvas element by ID, get element by ID. And when you're writing JavaScript, you have to capitalize everything. It's case sensitive, so it has to be written exactly like this. If you have something like this, it's not going to work. So make sure that you capitalize everything the way that it is. And then I'm going to put my canvas and semicolon. So I've created a variable which stores the canvas. The JavaScript is getting the canvas element that I created that I named my canvas. So it's finding this ID and finding this entire canvas element. The next thing that I need is a variable for the context. So the context is what is inside of the canvas element. So similar to the inner HTML of the other tags, Canvas specifically gets something called context. And the way we write that, so now I have my variable canvas, and I'm going to say get context. And then I am telling it that we're using the 2D mode. The canvas has two modes, 2D and 3D. And we are in this class only working with 2D. So 3D is kind of a whole other ballgame, but we're just going to work with 2D here. And if we go back to the reference, to the intro, you can see here that they have, let's go to the next one, a variable with the canvas stored, which gets the canvas element and stores it in the canvas variable. And then they have a context, canvas.getContext. And that is a method. These two methods are things that you always need for calling the canvas. I'm going to shorten this context C because we're going to have to type it a lot. But just make sure that you recognize that C stands for context and not canvas, because our canvas variable is named canvas. Okay, so now I can size the canvas. And I want to size the canvas element. So I'm not calling the context yet. I'm just going to call the canvas variable and change the width to, let's say, 600. And I'll do the canvas height also to 600. So this is finding that canvas element and sizing the whole thing here. And that's the only time I'm going to do that, because for the rest of what I'm going to do is inside of the canvas, and what I call is the context. So to create your graphics, use the context. And the first thing I'm going to do is make some rectangles. Oops, rectangles. And so I just write C and fill rect, which is one of the methods that we have in our canvas reference here. So rectangles, there's rectangle creates a rectangle, fill rectangle is a filled rectangle. So I want a rectangle that's filled in. So that's where I'm getting that. And if we look here, so if we click on the fill rectangle, it tells us that there are 4 arguments. So these are called arguments, which is a weird word for it, but these are the parameters that we tell it to do in order to build our rectangle. So it starts off with the position, and this is the X and Y coordinate of the upper left-hand corner. So that's 20 pixels in and 20 pixels down. and then it's the width and height of the box. So it's 150 pixels wide and 100 pixels high. And that tells us that here, the parameter values, which are X coordinate, Y coordinate, width, and height. So then I'm going to do, let's do 50X, 50Y, and we'll do 100 and 100. And it's creating a square because 100 and 100 is a square. And that's 50 pixels over and 50 pixels down. So I'll create another one, fill a rectangle, and do 100 over, 100 down, make it 150 and 200. And so it's going to draw it wherever I tell it is, even if there's another thing there, it's just going to overlap them. And this rectangle is in front of this rectangle. So I'm going to move that over. I'm going to make it smaller too. Let's make it 75 and 100. And I'm going to move this over 150. $175. Okay, so I'm kind of just writing in these numbers, but we could go. So I know that this is over 50 to the right and that it's 100. So it's 150. I just didn't think about it. So if I want a space there, I have to make this one over more than 150. If I want them to overlap, then anything between 0 and 150 will make them overlap. Okay, so let's keep making rectangles. Fill rect. I'll do on 300, 200, 100, 100, and another one. Fill rectangle. Let's do 400 and down 300 and 150 and 75, 76, whatever. There we go. So these are positioned here and they're not going to move. It's just going to move inside of the canvas. So now that I have drawn my rectangles, I can change the style of them by doing C fill style and then giving it a color. So I could write blue. Oh, I have to do equals, not that. So the fill style is blue for everything that is below the blue. So the first rectangle by default has the black fill. And now I've said the fill style is now blue. So all of these underneath the blue fill style are blue. So I can change that of all of them underneath. And this one can be red. And then I can change the ones, the one underneath that and make it green. So that each time I change the fill style, it's going to update it for everything below it. I can also do different color formats. So the hexadecimal color gives us a bigger range of color. I'm just writing in the color words in the example because I remember those easily. But I can change this to a hexadecimal color. I can also, let's go to the color picker. I can use the RGB values. And when I use the RGB values, I have to write in RGB and A. And A is the alpha. And I need this. So these three colors make up the RGB. So this is how much red. It's from 0 to 255. This is how much green and how much blue. And then the alpha channel is the transparency. So I can give it half of the opacity. So it's 50% of the opacity. And now if I, for example, move this green over, so I'll move this over to 375. No, not 375, and I'll move it up to 275. Okay, so this one is in front of the pink triangle. So if I move this down, it will go in front of it, and you can see that this is transparent and this one is not. So the RGBA is the RGB values, and then A is the alpha channel, which lets us change the transparency of things. So if I made this, I can make this really light, just a little bit transparency, or a lot of transparency, or if I did 90%, just a little bit transparency. So these are the different ways that we change the fill style. So now I can do a rectangle without a fill. And in order to that, I have to draw a path. So I have to tell it to begin a path. And nothing's going to show up yet. And then I do C rect instead of fill rect. And we always start off with a lowercase. When you have these kind of two words, the way that the syntax, or it's not the syntax, but the naming convention is usually begin with a lowercase, and then the second word is right next to it, begins with an uppercase. So if you are in doubt if it's this or this, it's going to be a lowercase for the first word. Okay, so we have the rectangle. I need to give it coordinates. So I'm going to do, let's do 150 and then down 350 and then, oh, I don't know, 75 and 100. And it's still not going to show up because I have to give it a stroke function. So now it begins the path and it sets up the rectangle, and then it draws in the stroke. I can change the stroke style if I write it above the stroke and I do stroke style. Oops. Style equals blue. So now I've changed the stroke style. And the next thing we're going to do is a line. So I have to do a similar thing. I have to do begin path. And to draw a line is a series of points that are connected. So I begin the path and I'm going to move the path to a certain point. So my beginning point is going to be, I'll just put in 110. So it's putting a point about here and here, but there's nothing there yet because we have nothing drawn. and we need another point. So then we move the path, we put the line to the next point, and I'll do 240. And then we have to give it stroke again. Okay, so it is beginning the path, moving the point to this beginning point here at 100. X is 100 and 10 is the Y. And then it's moving the point over to 200 over and then 40 down. And we start always the corner. So the corner is 0, and then we get higher up. So my square is 600, 600. So this is 0 over here and 600 over here, 0 at the top and 600 down. So that's how the X and Y math is. But so now I've drawn one line between 2 points, and I can keep adding to that as much as I want. So I can now do C line 2. Let's do 250 and 65. Let's bend it more. Let's do 165. Okay, and now let's do, I'm just gonna copy and paste that and do 350 and 365. Let's move this over actually, so it's not by that. Let's do 350 and 450. Okay, and then let's bring it back. So we'll do a line 2 there, and then a line 2. Let's do 150 and 365 again. So I can continue drawing this line as much as I want and create a drawing this way. I can also change the stroke style to something else now. And the stroke was blue because the last time I told it what the stroke style was, it was blue, and then I started a new path and the stroke style was still blue. So if I want to change the stroke style of the line from the last rectangle, then I have to update and change that stroke style again. Okay, so now let's do a circle, which is actually an arc. And this one is a little more tricky. So let's look at our circle. So it's actually an arc, and this is where it sounds more complicated than it is, but we have to draw a series of arcs to make a circle. And the way that this works is, so here's the arc method, creates an arc curve used to create circles or part of circles. And so we need to set the angle to 0 and end the angle at 2 times math pi. And so this is, these are radians. So it's 0, 0.5 pi, 1 pi, 1.5 pi, 1.5 pi, and then 2 pi. And don't worry about this because we're not gonna need to use this too much. Just understand that you have to fill in the parameters. So the first one is x. The x coordinate is the center of the circle. Y is the center of the circle. R is the radius of the circle, and then S is starting angle. So I'm going to put 0, and then optional. So then the ending angle in radians. So if I start at 0, then I want to end at 2 pi. And then we can draw either clockwise or counterclockwise. False is default, which is clockwise. So we're just going to leave the default on that. But we're going to fill in these 5 things for our circle. So we're going to do C, arc, and then put in our arguments. So I'm going to put it, let's put it over to 400, so over to the right. And then we'll put it down 100. So it's going to be over here and then over here somewhere. But that's the middle of the circle. I'll make my radius something like 40. So that's one side of circle. Double that will be the diameter. I'm starting off at 0, and then I want it to end at math.pi times 2, which is going all the way around the circle. And then by default, it's drawing it a certain way. So the circle is over here, but again, we have to give it a stroke. Oops, I forgot my parentheses to call the function. Okay, so it's now going from the last point of the line to the circle here where it's beginning to draw it, which is at 0. I'm telling it to draw a circle with a radius of 40 at this location. There's the center point, and it's going like this. I'm drawing it around to here. So if I wanted it to, I think if I do begin path again. Yeah, so if I begin a new path, it won't connect it to the next point. It will close off this last line object and then start the circle. If I don't have that, then it's just going to continue because I had a begin path. And so it's just going to continue that path over and over again. So I might want to do that. I might want to connect this and then continue on and do line 2. What do I want to go to? Let's do back up to 10, 100. And then stroke. Okay, so it's going from here to here, drawing a circle around and then going here. So I could keep on continuing this line, draw circles. I could draw rectangles within my line, or I can close them off. If I don't, so for example, if I take out this other begin path, it's going to connect the line. So it's changing, even though this is blue up here, because I have this connected line, it's changing it now to red because it's updating it. So if you want to differentiate those and close them off, you have to close off the path and start a new path. So this is the Canvas element and some of the basic functions that you can do to draw shapes. So take a bit of time and draw some squares, circles, and lines on a Canvas element. And then go on to the next tutorial where we are going to begin with P5. And what P5 does is it takes all these things like having to write out the arc and the pi math and gives us a library of functions that make it a lot faster and easier just to draw because it's made for artists to draw. So try out working with the canvas and then go on to the next tutorial where we will start with P5. See you soon.